What's up, Fins fans? Jim Grieshaber, call me Grease, and the Miami Dolphins make it 4 in a row with an emphatic win over the New York Jets on the road. We break it down squad style for you right here, right now.
Hey, Jeff Zgonina here. Big win streak. Bring those Steelers now.
Kyle Krabs, host of Locked On Dolphins, and the only thing better than winning is winning at the expense of the New York Jets.
Fins up! It's the Dolphins Squad. Everything Miami Dolphins, every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from South Beach. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Sunshine, speed, and squad goals. The Dolphins Squad Show starts now.
Yes, it does. We're talking 4 in a row and 5 out of 6. Miami, they are there. They are at 6-7, the number we've been talking about for weeks, and they head to Pittsburgh and Cincinnati with the Steelers and the Bengals back-to-back, and they have a chance to get over 500 against a couple of pretty good teams in the conference, but major playoff ramifications in both those games with a lot of the Dolphins' destiny in their own hands the next 2 weeks. But first things first, Jim Grieshaber, call me Grease. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. That's Jeff Zgonina in the middle. Kyle Krabs running the sweep off the outside on the right there. And, man, I know, Kyle, you're happy. You hate the Jets. Every Dolphins fan hates the Jets. But the Dolphins finished the season sweep of the New York Jets. They win 34-10, 4 wins in a row. We're going to talk about that defense because that 10 had nothing to do with them. That 10 had nothing to do with them. The defense was all over that field again today. Turnovers, takeaways, 3 and outs everywhere. Just an unbelievably inspiring effort from the defense. And the running game sets the tone again. Not only was it Achane, he leaves with the rib, 7 carries, 92 yards. How about Jalen Wright having a big game today for the Miami Dolphins? So that identity as the running team that controls the line of scrimmage on both sides. And see, I want to start with you. It was Kyle's point the other day on the Wednesday show. He said, guys, they're not soft up front, and here are the numbers to back it up because the narrative about the Dolphins was they were soft up front. And even listening today, I like to listen to the other team's radio, number one, because they're so much better, but number two, because, and Wischusen's awesome. I love Bob Wischusen. That's not a shot at anybody, but the Jets radio team is great, and he's talking about the Dolphins have the third to last run defense in the NFL, like not the last 4 weeks, brother. Not the last 4 weeks. So, Z, I want to start with you and the another inspiring effort up front on both sides of the ball from the Miami Dolphins today.
Yes, I thought the front seven played really well today on our defense there. We've had them come in and, they did some good things. That was the number 7th rush offense in the league, I believe. And to be able to shut them down and, get those 3 and outs, the Jets didn't convert a third down or either team to midway through the third quarter, so it was a sloppy third down play. I think they were almost negative or whatever, for it. And it just shows, that we was able to rush for and get some pressure on, the kid after, Taylor went out. And it was also a good thing for us, and we ended up with 6 sacks, 3 picks. It's a hell of a day on defense.
A really great day on defense, controlling the tempo, and gave up the special teams touchdown, right? That's the Jets' MO. They've been scoring a ton of special teams touchdowns lately. But, Kyle, I mentioned the 4 wins in a row. They scored 21 points in the first quarter. They just come out and suck the life out of the place right away, score touchdowns on their first 3 drives of the game, 3 and out, interception after 3 plays, 3 and out on the other side. What a first quarter for Miami to really set that tone. And, they gave up the punt return touchdown very late in the first quarter. Otherwise, it was their most dominant performance in any quarter this season.
Oh, yeah. It's the first time they had scored 21 points in the first quarter of a game since the Dan Campbell interim head coach romp where they scored like 42 points or whatever it was against the Houston Texans back in like 2015. Like it's been that long since they scored 21 points in a first quarter. And, I think it's easy to kind of lose track of, well, you started out so dominant and then you get quiet in the middle of the game. And some of that's game flow and some of that's adjustment by the Jets and some of that's some self-inflicted errors that the Dolphins had where they're running the ball with success and then they have some procedural stuff and some false starts and they get knocked back. But I really like the kind of game script that they came out and played with, what they were able to do in that regard. And then the sustainability of it with how they ran the football down the stretch. And the way they closed this game out, the way they started and the way they finished. The things in the middle, there's a lot of things that need to be cleaned up. But, man, the way that they finished this game and the way that they jumped out from the start with kind of the in-rhythm passing stuff to complement what was a very run-heavy effort and should be a run-heavy effort just because of how well they run the football right now. There's a lot to like here. There's a lot to like.
Tyrell Dodson with an interception. Obviously, Ethan Bonner had the interception late in the game as well. And who am I missing? Who else had that interception? Oh, Rasul Douglas had a big pick in the game today, too. So the defense continuing that trend of taking the ball away. We've talked about this a lot. The win streak, the 4 in a row, the 5 out of 6. It's been all about takeaways. And to the offense's credit, not turning the ball over on that side. But from the defensive standpoint, Z, as a defensive player and a defensive coach, they just continue to put helmets on bodies, knocking that ball all over the place, picking the ball off. So many takeaways in these past few games. And another opponent, and this was a special teams touchdown too. So when you're talking about the defense, they held the Jets to 3 points today.
Yeah, no, and 2 of those picks were down in the end zone, so taking points off the board there, which is great, and I thought, again, those young kids in the middle are playing some good football here late in the season. They finally came around, and you got Zach, they're always, holding down the fort, and you got the 3 rooks, doing some good things inside, and our guys outside. Chop showed up today a little bit more in his pass rush, which was nice to see. And Chubb is coming on. Him and Zach, I think either split 2 or one got 1, and they split that 1. But that's good to see. You got the old guys doing some good things and bringing those young cats with them.
Yeah, and an early fourth quarter sequence, Kyle, that I love too. The Jets go on a 12-play, 65-yard drive, and the Dolphin defense holds them to a field goal, which I thought was big in this game because at the time it makes it only 24-10, and you're thinking, wow, if the Jets score a touchdown here, they're within 10. And then when Miami gets the ball back after series, and you mentioned the middle of the game, like we talked about the start of the game, touchdowns on the first 3 drives, but then when you look at the second and third quarters, punt, field goal, punt. But after the Jets kicked the field goal, which was huge that they held into the field goal, the Miami Dolphins get the ball back, and they go on a 9-play, 67-yard drive, 5 minutes, 55 seconds, and score a touchdown to put the game away.
Yeah, that drive, 9 plays, 69 or 67 yards, 5 minutes and 55 seconds time of possession. 8 of those plays are runs to go with 1 quick game pass to Jalen Waddle just to kind of serve as a changeup once they got on the fringe of the red area. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of like the old school WWF when Stone Cold Steve Austin came out and he was given the double verts to Vince McMahon, and Vince is looking up on the mat and he has just no answer for what's happening, right? That's that drive of we are going to put our foot on your throat, double birds, ice the game. I love that possession. I wish we saw that a lot earlier in the game because it felt like, they got up and, okay, we want to stay balanced offensively. We want to get some guys some touches. Maybe we go a little bit more pass heavy in the early down and neutral down rates. And then you came down to it and it's like, okay, guys, like let's quit playing with our food here. It's 24-10. We just got the ball back. We have run all over this football team when we've decided to do it today. Let's decide to do it today. And they went right down the field. And one of the biggest emergencies out of this entire game for me is Jalen Wright and his ability to execute the inside zone and the gap scheme stuff between the tackles. Now, I think some of the outside stuff for him is still a little bit hit and miss. I don't think his vision is as strong there, but he comes from an offense in Tennessee that's a very spread offense. They get a lot of like 5.5-man boxes at Tennessee, and they just ran inside zone like until the cows come home at the University of Tennessee. That's where his bread and butter is the between the tackle stuff and the physicality. And what he had, was it 4 straight runs that went for 10+ yards on that series where, I mean, it was just gouge. So for Miami down the stretch, you talk about this cold weather football style of offense that they're playing and how it translates to late in the year. But your worry is, well, Devon Achan's not a real big guy. Let's assume there's no issues with Devon Achan and he's going to be a full go next week for Pittsburgh. This body of work for Jalen Wright should have you reassessing kind of your carry share, because if you can get some of this rolling down the course of the next 4 weeks of the season, you can just add another layer, and this can be all that much more dangerous for what you can do running the ball.
5.8 yards per carry, 41 carries, 239 yards. And we've been talking a lot on this show about how dangerous Jalen Wright is and how they've been in core. I mentioned it. I went back and listened. I thought I could get a clip that I could play that would make me look good, but it wasn't as good as I thought it was. So I just left it there where it belongs in the past. But no, seriously, we were talking about him the other day, just saying, hey, I love the way they've been working him in. They've been incorporating Jalen Wright, 24 carries, 107 yards today. When Achane leaves the game after 7 carries, 92 yards for him. And then Gordon, all 3 of them scored a touchdown today. Talking about the running backs, and you know how it is. And I remember the University of Miami. And by the way, shout out to the Canes. They made the playoff. ND on the outside where they belong as Miami. And I was surprised Bama made it in over Notre Dame. But Irish eyes are not smiling today. The Canes are in, though. And when I think about this Dolphins backfield, and I love backfields that are loaded. I love the running back room to be oozing and just dripping with talent, right? It reminds me of the days at the U when you're looking at Clinton Portis and you're looking at Frank Gore and you're looking at Willis McGahee all in the same room, right? Well, these guys right here for the Dolphins, not only does each guy fill his role, Z, but next man up, and whenever it is next man up, whichever one of these 3 it is, always steps up.
Yeah, no, the only thing, we got to start watching, is Wright is, in the pass game, because Achane was pretty good in the pass game. And it seemed early in that game, especially when we were backed up there, we had 2 kind of like miscommunications or something between him and Tua, out in the flat there. The one almost went for a pick 6, and the other one, he didn't even turn around to, even though the ball was coming to him. So I don't know if that was on Tua or if that was on him.
One before halftime that almost could have been a backward pass.
Yeah.
Oh, that was having a heart attack on that.
I think they were both in the same drive.
They've run that before where there's been times, and I don't know if this is the case with this time that they've run it, but they've run that before where that's like a designed screen, and it's a different way for them to get to that perimeter screen where they kind of walk them in like they're going to dummy, like you're going to go across the quarterback's face in the gun. And then at the snap, you turn around and you run back out and you still get the ball at like a similar catch point. But at least then you have momentum going to the sideline for the screen. So I know there was some question about, like, well, why Tua throw him the ball if he wasn't looking? Well, if it was a screen, that's the only place you can go with the ball, right? Like you have to expect that the back's looking for the football. So I'll be interested to look at that one. But I agree with you, Z, as far as like the passing game utilization for Achane. I don't think it's fair on any of these other guys. Expect them to be able to do that. So if Achane has to miss a game, hypothetically, or miss a few games, hypothetically, I think you'll see more Malik Washington, who early in the season they did some things where they put him in the backfield when they were only dressing 2 backs on the 50 or the active game day roster. So I think that's a way that you can mitigate it a little bit. But here's to Devon Achane, who looked fine out on the sideline, was smiling, talking with the guys in the second half with the big coat on. Hopefully this is just hey, we look at the score. Hey, we look at the writing on the wall. Hey, we don't want to put you back out there in harm's way because we got bigger and better things to get to the rest of the season.
And by the way, a big win for the Steelers, next week's opponent today over the Ravens. And that was an unbelievable victory for Pittsburgh as Aaron Rodgers came back and played pretty well today. And when you look at Pittsburgh, that's a tough game on the road next week. Monday Night Football, physical team. They've been calling for Mike Tomlin's head. We're going to get into that game a little bit later on in this show. But, Z, when I look at this Miami Dolphins team right now, and I think the identity, Zach Sealer had 2.5 sacks today. The way the interior of the offensive line and the interior of the defensive line, the way that they've been playing on the line of scrimmage lately, you start thinking, oh, Pittsburgh, cold weather team, smash mouth football. The Dolphins are smash mouth football now. They match up favorably with any of these teams right now with the way that people can say all they want. They're still third from the bottom with rush defense, but clearly these past 5 games, 6 games have been a very, very different team. We've talked week in and week out about the different keys to that. But, man, they brought it again today, Z. I mean, the defensive line, Zach Sealer, I mentioned 2.5 sacks in the game today, and they were just all over that field from the start. They were quick on run plays. They were beating them to the holes. And it just was – I don't want to get carried away because it's the Jets, but that was an inspiring effort by Miami's defensive front today.
Yes, it was. Like I said earlier, when you hold on a good run team like they did today, good things are going to happen. And the offense moved the ball, and the offense scored early, so it changed the complexity of the game later, and where the Jets had to put it up more, and then we're getting those 3 and outs, and we weren't on the field that much, because the offense was moving the ball, and and then the one score they had was a kick return, punt return, so that, you don't have a series there defensively, even though you get counted for the points, which is ridiculous, but whatever, but when the offense can shrink the game and we're not on the field like we were earlier in the year for a gazillion drives and we weren't stopping people because we're still trying to feel our way through, the defense with the young guys and the new guys, until we got a chance to gel. And, over the last 5 weeks, you've seen it. And when the offense, you play complementary football with the offense, you're not on the field a lot. You have outings like this that looks good for the defense.
That's Jeff Zgonina, call him Z. He knows a thing or two about being a defensive player and coach in the NFL, 27 years worth to be exact, and then some, and that's Kyle Krabs, your host of Locked On Dolphins, the podcast. Jim Grieshaber, call me Grease. By the way, Locked On Dolphins, the number 10 channel on the network that is number 1 in the sports podcasting world, the Locked On Podcast Network. We have a lot more coming your way on today's Squad Show post-game reaction edition. 4 wins in a row, 5 out of 6. We're going to dig deeper into that defense and how great they played again today, just taking the ball away week in and week out and looking like it's their birthright, walking in with a chip on their shoulder from the second they walk in the stadium. And just the way that this team has come together, it's gelled, and the aura, the attitude, the ferocity of this Miami Dolphins team. At one point, we're looking at a 1-6 team, and look at them now. So we got a lot to talk about still on the show. The run game with the 3-headed monster back there. Tua doing just enough, 13 out of 21, right in that sweet spot range for his numbers for the Dolphins to pick up a win. But make no mistake about it, this was all about the line of scrimmage. Kyle Z. Grease going to pick it up right here on the other side. Just getting started with your Dolphins Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Keep it right here, talking more about that defense on the other side. There we go. Come on. See that? Every time I hit Z on the screen. There we go. I hit it 3 times to get off. Every show, it's like more and more. I think his agent's up to something. I don't know. But I know one thing. I'm up to something, and I'm telling you about Aura Frames. The holidays are officially here, right? No matter what you want to say about it, think about it. Oh, man, why is all this Christmas stuff out? Well, in August, maybe it was a little much, but now it's right around the corner. Gift hunting season is on, and if you want something meaningful, if you want something personal, if you want something guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way to share memories, because Aura is not just your average picture frame. What a name, too. A-U-R-A, Aura. Not your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it. That way, when they plug it in, as soon as they plug it in, the memories already there. Bang. Just like that. And grandma's going, how'd they do that? No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles across the board. Grandparents, parents, newlyweds, anyone who loves photos. True story, guys. My baby sister and my daughter both got engaged yesterday. Someone get me an Aura frame right now. You get endless uploads of pictures and 30-second videos through the Aura app. You add a personalized message right inside the frame so the gift feels thoughtful the moment that it's open. The packaging is gift ready, no price tag, no wrapping needed. Huge, huge win, right? Huge win. It's a holiday gift that actually gets used, not forgotten and left in a drawer. And right now, hey, it's your tomorrow for a limited time. Save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com. You get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames. They're named number one by Wirecutter. All you have to do is use the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. That's A-U-R-A, auraframes.com, promo LOCKEDON. This deal is exclusive to you. And the frames sell out fast, so order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout, and as always, terms and conditions, they apply. Aura Frames on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Jeff Zgonina, call him Z. That's Kyle Krabs, and I'm Jim Grieshaber. And again, guys, we're talking about that defense. And by the way, did you catch that? My baby sister and my daughter both got engaged last night.
Congratulations.
I got some heads to roll. I mean, there's going to be something like, but no, what a night. Crazy. And no one knew it was happening. It was completely by coincidence. And so the Aura Frames, keep them coming. So it was a good one. And I know you guys, Kyle, you have young kids, and Z, you have kids. And man, it's what a gift. I mean, in the old days, you'd have to pick out a picture. You'd have to go get it developed. You'd have to cut it. Yeah, I did it for years. You're stuffing the frames with pictures, and Aura Frames making it easy. Or if you just want to sit there and document each Dolphins win, you could get an Aura frame for each win. Put the players of the game up in there. But, man, a good show today. A lot of fun because a big win for the Miami Dolphins. We're going to look at that Steelers game coming up. We're going to look at the playoff scenarios coming up, a couple of big games today that had impact on that. But first things first, you're still a game under 500, right? You still have a lot to do, Z, a lot of work to do, and anything could throw this thing off the tracks, and then all these wins in a row, they don't mean anything. But a word that we use a lot on this show and with regard to football in general, and Z, I want to go to you on this first, it's momentum. And I talked about the way that this team got off the plane, the way they walked in the stadium. These are not your Miami Dolphins from a couple months ago. What a difference a couple months have made, a win streak has made. Could I say it? They're playing with swagger now. See, this team has swag getting off that plane.
They sure do. And we've been talking about it, over the last 5 weeks of how much energy we've seen on the sidelines, even when they were losing, and how they were sticking together and always having each other's backs and always saying the right things, which, means some, but they're saying the right things probably in the locker room to each other, which is which helps. The leaders led finally, and they pulled everybody together. And the older guys, didn't shut it down. They went out there and played and showed in practice, lead by example. And they're feeling it again. They're feeling how they were a couple of years ago when they were putting up 73, 72 points, and they're the talk of the league, and they want that back. So they just keep going out there and working their asses off to do that, and it helps. And they're having fun doing it, which is great. Because, this time of year, if you're winning or if you're losing, if you're having fun doing it, it makes it a lot easier, when the days are long, or it's darker earlier and the days are longer, so it's always helpful, And
a lot of expectations for this team these last couple of years, Kyle, and we know the story. We know all the things that have happened, and Tua's game slipping, Tyreek Hill, all these things that have happened. But to see this team with this kind of swagger, to see this team playing the way they're playing, and again, we talked about it last year. They had the 4th-ranked defense. They blew that thing up. They brought a bunch of young guys in. They had some injury issues. Did you ever think you'd see this defense playing the way it's playing right now this season, Kyle? I know I didn't.
Yeah, I think the variable, right, is we were in June and didn't know what the secondary was going to look like because Jalen Ramsey's still on the roster, and we knew they'd been making some calls on some corners, and they hadn't signed anybody, right? And the youth movement, the start of this season for me was a very nice, sobering reminder of, I thought very highly of all the defensive interior players that the Dolphins brought in, but how long does it take them to get to that point? And that's something that I think I reflect on what Anthony Weaver just said this week when he was asked about why Zeke Biggers wasn't playing more. And he said, I'm not playing Madden, right? I can't drop these guys in here and they automatically know what to do. There's personal development that has to happen for that to take place. And you've seen that. And I think that's a testament to Anthony. I think that's a testament to Austin Clark. And the way that they are playing that swagger and bravado and confidence that you're talking about, Grease, it's because it's a team that physically is walking the walk, and they're going out there and they're dictating terms of the line of scrimmage, and they know that we're not going to go out there and get pushed around. And if we need to run the ball, we can lean on and run the ball, and we can do that stone cold Steve Austin double birds drive and mash the ball down your throat if we need to ice a game because they just went out and did it. So it's the last year's team. When I think back on it, I said at the end of the season, it was probably one of the most unlikable versions of the team that I can remember in my time of being a fan of the team, just because of some of the personalities and the way the season ended, and whether it was Tyreek at the end of the year and pulling himself out and how he did himself in the locker room, or Jalen Ramsey, or show me the money with Tua in training camp, whatever, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff. I'm could have done without that, could have done without that, definitely could have done without that. This year's group, they've got a lot of young, fun guys to root for. And then the leaders on the team are leaders that I think are very easy to root for. Guys like Aaron Brewer and Jordan Brooks as guys on either side of the ball. It's just an example. All of those elements to me, I look back at how this team is growing, and you look back, you'll probably look back at a couple of the early season game decisions, and there will be some big time regrets as far as what it will mean for the final record at the end of the year. But I hope they keep this thing stacked and keep this thing rolling, because it's a fun team to root for right now, in spite of some of the warts that they're winning in spite of, and they're figuring how to win around.
That's a great way to put it, figuring out ways to win around. And that's everybody in the NFL right now. And you look at just the games today, guys, right? And we'll get to this a little bit later in the show, the playoff scenarios. And obviously the Chiefs have really struggled in recent weeks, and that's helped Miami a lot. The Texans right there, the Colts with a devastating blow today for Danny Dimes with the Achilles injury. And they're pretty much toast anyway. They've been struggling. The Bengals with a tough one today at 4-9. They dropped one at Buffalo, so the Bills helped Miami a little bit there. You could beat the Bengals in a couple of weeks, but the Steelers beating the Ravens on the road. That was huge for Miami too, because you look at the Ravens have the head-to-head against Miami. Now Miami goes in to play the Steelers next week. So the Steelers are 7-6. You're 6-7. You don't have to be a University of Miami grad. Go Canes. You don't have to be a University of Miami grad to figure out. Tied up, same record. Miami has the head-to-head. So things are starting to, as you start. And again, a couple weeks ago, you mentioned it, Kyle. Last week we saw it. Oh, they're in the hunt graphic again. They're back in the hunt graphic. Well, now they're firmly entrenched in the hunt graphic, Kyle. And you have some things that need to happen around you for sure. But you know, the way that things set up today and the way that the games played out today, the Dolphins actually got a lot of help for the second week in a row.
Yeah, they'll keep it interesting if they keep this up, right? And obviously, I'm excited for the Pittsburgh game next week because it's primetime game on the road, cold weather up north, team with a winning record, all of the above, all of the narratives that exist around the things you can and can't do, and the Dolphins have had problems with forever. And you had that narrative busting win against Buffalo. They have won all the games between then and now to get to a point where they have another massive narrative busting game opportunity in Pittsburgh next week off of this. And the way that, you know, they didn't come in here and squeak out a win because the opposing team missed a field goal, and then you get to overtime and get an interception like what happened in Washington, right? Or New Orleans, where you're up comfortable and then you kind of don't execute down the stretch, and all of a sudden you're sweating it out and you might end up blowing a lead late in the game. That doesn't happen in this game, right? And you know, there's the Jets injuries kind of helped you out in that regard as far as Brady Cook and what he was able to do for them offensively. You could tell they're pretty handcuffed, right? So it comes with that acknowledgement, but at the end of the day, you went out and executed. This is now a great opportunity for this football team as we continue to assess where they're at and who's going to be the centerpieces of this operation moving forward and who needs to change.
And there's a lot of change that we talked about throughout the year, Z, that we thought we might see coming. But we talk about Mike McDaniel. We talk about Weaver. We talk about this coaching staff keeping these kids dialed in. And I say kids, they're all kids to me. But keeping this team dialed in, keeping them showing up with that intensity, keeping them prepared, and never 1 ounce of quit in this team. Coming off that Cleveland game, we thought it was toast. Everything looked terrible. But they've picked themselves up off the ground time and time again. And they've done it by bringing the lunch pails every day. Z, they're in there working hard, watching the film, and you can see it in the games, man. You can see the opportunistic nature of this defense flying around to the football. There's just that little extra spring in their step right now, and you can see it. And I'm watching games every week all around the league. The Dolphins are one of the more fun teams to watch right now. I never thought I'd say this year, but when you're watching the teams around the league and I'm watching the games today, there were some good games today, but the way that this Dolphins team is flying all over that football field right now, and people in the chat saying, oh, it's been fun while it lasts, Pittsburgh's going to kill us, oh, we still need to get rid of McDumbass, oh, 2 of this. You're never going to please everybody, but the way that this team has continuously shown up, we talked about it Wednesday, whoever the new GM is, right? The Chris Greer firing lights a fire somehow. They keep Mike reaches the team, you know, and say what we want about Tua week in, week out. We have a lot to say. 13 of 21 today didn't set the world on fire, but also didn't do anything to hurt you really either.
Yeah, no picks. You know, and that's always a good thing for Tua, you know, for his confidence and for the confidence of the guys on the team, you know. But, yeah, I mean, like, again, these guys are young, especially on defense. They don't know any better than to play hard, you know, and give it their all every down. You know, they're not old veteran guys that, oh, here we go again. They've been on teams that are losing teams all the time, you know, and it's like at this time of year, you're like, I'm worried about now booking my trip, you know, in January to go somewhere warm or go somewhere, you know, on a holiday or whatever. These guys don't know that, you know, because we've got him going. He's got him playing hard. He's got these young cats playing, you know, and that's great. And the young guys that are still on the team, especially I'm talking defensively, they want to win and they want to play hard. They have something to prove. Chubb has something to prove because he was hurt last year. Zach just got a big contract. He doesn't want to be known as a guy that just made the, dash for the cash and then shut it down like some guys do in the league. So he's got those guys playing hard, and it's spread over to the offense because the offensive line are gelling and playing good football. Even the tight ends, you're just watching the game today. You see guys getting to the second level, making blocks to help these running backs to break, and then pushing guys into the end zone, like the down the field tush push, which was nice to see. So guys are hustling, guys are making extra plays, running that extra yard and a half to get a big gain, and it's great to see, But the thing I want to say, that watching these, shows before the game, like all these gurus, like for 8 weeks ago, were just killing the Dolphins. How bad this was, how bad that was. And now they're not even saying that anymore. It is a great testament to this team. Now they're not bashing, like that one old NFL coach that was on there. He was bashing the hell out of the Dolphins for 2 weeks straight. And he ain't saying a word now. He's bashing other teams that were supposed to be in the Super Bowl. So that was good to see today. And I kind of get a little chuckle about that today.
Yeah, shutting some people up. It's always good to shut people up, Z, right? That's Jeff Zgonina, Jim Grieshaber.
You're right, Kyle.
Krabs on the other side over there. Kyle is about to tell you about one of our awesome sponsors at Gametime, and then we still have half the show to go. We're going to talk more about this run game and that three-headed monster, more about the way this offense has embraced its identity, starting up front with the offensive line and the run game, and then we turn the corner and start looking at those Pittsburgh Steelers, and I didn't think Pittsburgh was going to get it done today on the road at Baltimore, but they did, and we already told you a little bit about what that means. We'll elaborate more on that on the other side as we get you ready. Monday Night Football next week with a chance to go to 500. Who would have thought a chance to go to 500 for your Miami Dolphins? It's your Dolphins Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and the numero uno sports podcast network in the world. Kyle's got Gametime. We continue right here on the other side.
World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams in for the first time ever, it's going to be a massive event. Let's be honest, getting tickets for these games is usually the most pain-invoking part, but that's why you should use the Gametime app. It is clutch. It finally gives fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Gametime, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible or a pipe dream. You can pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through and see matchups and compare seat views. You can pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. And alerts for teams and matches make it easy to grab tickets the moment they drop instead of missing out. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, download the app, make an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, take it, go. Gametime. Welcome back.
There we go. Come on. All right. There we go. I am cleaning the screen right after this show, guys, and I think that's going to solve it. I think I have fingerprints on there. Need some CSI work up in here. But 34-10 for the Dolphins, and when you look at what they've done lately, I want to give you some numbers in just a minute. But when you think about this team, where they were and where they are now, I mean, just looking at that win streak, right? You're talking about 4 in a row, 5 out of 6. They now have a longer win streak than any losing streak they've had this season. They had a couple of 3-game losing streaks that seemed like so long ago. 1-6 after that Cleveland game, 31-6 loss. They turn around and they decimate the Falcons. They win 34-10. The Baltimore game, they looked really good in the first half, but obviously the second half it got away from them. But aside from that, 34-10, 30-13, 16-13, 21-17, and 34-10. Teams not getting close to that 20-point mark on them, Z. I mean, that's number one, right? We talk about the line of scrimmage. We talk all the time about all the things you need to do to win a football game. But number one is scoring more points and holding the other team, right? So week in and week out, this defense, and especially today, that touchdown was on special teams. So they literally have been just constricting these offenses and holding them to nothing. The takeaways were there again today with the 3 picks, the pressure up front leading to a couple of those. 2 of them you mentioned, Z, in the red zone. So just an incredible job by the defense. I just want to put a bow on the performance of this defense, and not just today, Z. And again, I just read that to you, man. I mean, 34-10, 30-13, 16-13, 21-17, and 34-10 are these wins. And what a great job by that D.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the defense is playing lights out. You know, they rectified all their issues, and now they're playing better. It's just that, you know, offensively, I would like to see us score more points. I mean, I know we scored quite a bit today, but we
tough crowd, Z. 34.
We go through those lulls, though. I get nervous because, you know, we've always shot out to a nice start, you know, in the beginning of the game. And then, like, we come out at halftime, and then now we're like, oh, my God, it's coming down to a field goal at the end, or we got to stop them 4th and inches, you know. And it shouldn't be that way because we have great starts to these games. You know, I like how Mike took the ball on the opening kickoff, you know, and said, I'm going to go out and score and set the tempo. And he did. And 21 points in the first quarter, you expect more, you know. And then you go through those lulls, and now we're doing, you know, we're missing on some plays here and there on offense, you know, but the defense is still balling out, getting 3 and outs and turnovers and helping out. But the offense ain't moving it, and you're keeping teams around, you know, because when you give up a special teams touchdown like that, you don't know what could happen, you know. You almost throw a pick 6. Next thing you know, it's 21-14 right there, you know, and now, oh, here we go again. I like to see a complete game of just controlling the ball and getting points almost on every drive would be nice.
Kyle, I know you have a response to that, talking about a tough room, but I mean, Z's right. I mean, the 21 points early, you had to score a bunch of points late, but in between there was a whole lot of missed opportunity.
Yeah, I certainly think they shot themselves in the foot, and you generally felt like that was something they'd been better at, right? As far as maybe you still get a early timeout in the game because you have a personnel issue, and that happened to them again today, right? Where they burn a timeout early in the game, and then they burn another timeout early in the second half because Waddle gets banged up and they have a personnel change that happens. So, you know, that's par for the course, but a lot of the pre-snap procedural stuff felt like it was better and cleaner, and you had some false starts, and one of them is Malik Washington on a motion set point, and he starts to move, but Tua is not ready, so they call it a false start. We had one for Austin Jackson as well. You go back to last week against New Orleans, Nick Westbrook-Ikine doesn't get up on the line of scrimmage, so you get flagged for an illegal formation. And little stuff like that. Those are the kinds of things when the passing offense is as intermittent as it's been in the past month or 2 months or whatever you want to qualify it as. You can't afford to set yourself behind the sticks like that. If you're going to be a running team, if you're going to possess the ball and you're going to want to gouge teams on the ground and stay ahead of the chains, you can't take 2nd and 4 and make it 2nd and 9 because that changes the call a lot of the times. And I think that's where you felt Miami, or at least I felt Miami, kind of get into after the first couple possessions. It's okay. We want to be balanced. We want to try to present a bunch of different things. Felt like you got out of their opening script a little bit. I mean, they scored fast on that opening possession, right? I think it was 6 plays. They went right down the field in a bunch of chunks. They probably had some meat left on the bone on their opening script because they scored so fast, right? So how they hummed throughout that, I think is notable. And I think that's something to acknowledge as far as the game plans that they've put together and how they've started fast in recent weeks. It certainly seems like they're getting a good script down to get you into the game, but then you faded. And then how do you get back out of fading? Well, you get back to what worked for us today. You run the ball. So I agree that the middle 35 minutes of the football game kind of felt like they were unnecessarily challenging because you had some short possessions. I know, Grease, you went through it already, but touchdown, and then it was punt, field goal, punt to close the half. A lot of those were also field position stuff, right? Where you were kind of backed up. You didn't want to make a big mistake with a big lead backed up in your own territory. So I think that didn't help either. But then you come out and you have 2 possessions in the third quarter and you punt on both of those too. So I think there's a lot that goes into it, but I totally think it's fair to say, hey, these little things we got to clean up so that we can keep being more consistent across the body of work in the 60-minute game.
All right, real quick, guys, I just want to take you through what happened today in this game from a scoring standpoint and a couple of numbers that we'll give you. And I'm getting a little bit of an echo from one of you guys. I'm not really sure if one of you guys has a speaker on in the background or something. I don't know. It sounds like the old radio days when.
Or I think it's you, Grease.
You think it's me?
Because I don't hear it when I talk. I don't hear it when Z talks, but I hear it when you talk.
Okay, so I hear it when you guys are talking. I don't know what it is, but we can figure it out in real time. But I just wanted to say the Dolphins took the lead, and Tua took a big hit on that first touchdown throw to Waddle, the 3-yarder, but they went down the field, had a couple of big plays on that drive, and then Achane with a 13-yard run. Both of these, again, they scored on their first 3 possessions. So 12:46, 8:48. They go 4 plays, 69 yards. They go 5 plays, 80 yards. Achane with a 13-yard run. The third touchdown that made it 21-0 was Jalen Wright with a 2-yard rush and a 6-play, 29-yard drive that they scored on there. So there's 21-0 before you blink. Then the Jets get the special teams touchdown, right? The punt return touchdown, and they've been scoring a ton of those lately. Made it 21-7 at the end of the first quarter. Riley Patterson, a 43-yard field goal, made it 24-7 at 1:56 of the second. And nobody scored until the fourth quarter. The Jets with a Nick Folk field goal. The Dolphins with an Ollie Gordon 7-yard touchdown run at 6:18 of the fourth. That was that 9-play, 67-yard drive that we were talking about, guys, that made it all work. And then Riley Patterson with a 53-yard field goal. Real quick on the numbers side, man, I mean, and the halftime numbers were absurd. I could go through and read them, but you guys remember the halftime numbers. 23-12 first downs for Miami. And you think about it, the rushing first downs, 14-3 for the Dolphins in this game. Third down efficiency, both teams were terrible. 2 for 10 for Miami, 1 for 12 for the Jets. Total plays, 6 more for Miami, but you're looking at the total yards, 358 to 207, and just 13 drives to 12. So they badly outgained them. Yards per play, 5.7 to 3.6. The passing, the Jets actually had more passing yards, but that was by design for Miami. 239 to 65 rushing yards. 230. I don't know what's more impressive, Z, the 239 or the 65.
65, always.
The defensive line.
Defense. Yeah. I mean, anytime you hold somebody under 100 is a great day, but 65 is, that's outstanding.
8 yards per rush on 17 attempts for the Jets. The penalties, 5 for 54, 6 for 50, 3 turnovers for the Jets, none for the Dolphins, which has been huge for them on this winning run of football they've been playing. They had the football for 13 more minutes than the Jets did in this game. And then when I look at the individual stats, and this is something that I love to see because we talked about the sweet spot for Tua. 13 of 21, 127 yards, a touchdown, only 1 sack, no picks. So that's his sweet spot, 13 to 15, 16 completions, no more than 25 attempts. Don't really care about the yardage. Just don't turn it over. Take the touchdowns when they're there. Pick up some third downs, which they weren't real good at today anyway. But Jalen Wright, 24 for a $107 and a touchdown. Achane, 7 for 92, 13.1 per carry with a touchdown. And, of course, Ollie Gordon had a touchdown, 5 carries for 17 yards. Waddle had the 21-yard run today on the opening drive. That was big for Miami. Tua did fumble the ball, but they recovered it. So on the defensive side, guys, real quick, and receptions-wise, it was 5 for 50 for Waddle and 3 for 41 for Dulcich, which was nice for him. But on the defensive side of the ball, Z, I'm just going to throw it here because he's your guy in the middle, number 92. Zach Sealer might have played his best game of the season today. 2.5 sacks, but just in the backfield all game long, blowing up the interior of that Jets offensive line.
Yeah, no, he did show up in both in the pass game and in the run game, playing good technique and everything. And so the other guys inside, I thought they were really gap sound up front and playing some really good football in there to stop this, run game that the Jets had. That's all they really had was a run game coming in, So, and they took it away and made that young kid try to make some throws.
All right, man. Well, and look, they've caught a lot of breaks on this little win streak too, with injuries, with quarterbacks not playing, things like that. But you win the games in front of you, you beat the teams in front of you, and we've seen some of those teams really struggling lately, guys. But as we turn the corner to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I want to mention Pittsburgh here because that was a big win for them today. And we're up against a break in just a minute here. So we'll segue and transition into the Steelers, who they didn't, obviously, less than 2 weeks ago, people are calling for Mike Tomlin to be fired. They need to blow things up in Pittsburgh. Even Ben Roethlisberger was making comments about it and saying maybe it's time for a change. And Big Ben, obviously, the all-time great franchise QB, along with Terry Bradshaw in Pittsburgh. But coming off that tough loss that they had against the Bills, and you just didn't know what you were going to get from the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers had the injury. They lost to the Bears before that, and just a tough go. So as you look at the Steelers, real quick before the break, I'll start with you, Z. When I say Pittsburgh Steelers next week for Miami, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
A win.
Oh, I like it. How about you, Kyle? First thing about the Steelers.
Chaotic. Ironic is the thing. And I don't know if you want to go to break, but I've got some thoughts on Pittsburgh and their situation and what the stereotype was around that team versus the stereotype around this team and what it looks like right now. Obviously, the records are similar, but ironic, I think, is what I think about when I look at Pittsburgh and think about a chance to play them this week upcoming.
Well, how about we start the next segment with that right there, because that's one hell of a tease from Kyle Krabs, host of Locked On Dolphins. Jim Grieshaber, call me Grease. That's Jeff Zgonina in the middle. Big Z, the run stuffer. And I know that he's pumped about the way that the Dolphins have been playing up front, and we've been having a great show today. We're going to wrap it up on the other side, talk more about Pittsburgh. Kyle's going to do that compare and contrast right here on your Dolphins Squad Show, Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You see me hitting the screen, don't you? That's hilarious. I'm ready to punch my own computer screen. It's a touch screen. But, hey, NFL Sundays move fast, so fast that you need to hit that screen faster, right? And one big play, suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as much as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum, every swing, every highlight moment during the game. Live betting is fast when the game starts to shift, right? A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after another turnover forced by the Dolphins defense. Well, FanDuel lets you jump right in on the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly with FanDuel. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility with FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. On the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm not playing around. I'm clicking it from now on. No more of this touchscreen stuff, guys, as we wrap up the show. What a good one from Miami, though. Again, 34-10. We thought it could be a little bit of a trap, but they come right into that stadium, take the life right out of it with 21 first quarter points. They give up the punt return. But other than that, it was just as close to a perfect quarter as you can play. And now you have the Pittsburgh Steelers. A little bit of momentum coming off the win over Baltimore today that you didn't think they'd have maybe. But, Kyle, you talked about Pittsburgh and Miami, and the first thing that came to your mind as we were going to break, and can't wait for you to explain all that to us. So let's hear that.
Yeah, so you go back to the summertime, and former Dolphin Deshaun Elliott went on whatever player, I think it was Cam Hayward's podcast or whatever, and they were talking about everybody's experiences and asked him about is the stigma and stereotype around the Dolphins and culture true? And he couldn't say, yeah, they have no culture down there in Miami fast enough. And Z referred to it earlier as far as the young guys, and they only know one way how to play, right? Because they've been brought into your program and they want to play hard and they've got something to prove and they're just getting started in their careers. And all of that offseason talk about culture and team culture and getting yourselves to a spot where you've got a healthy balance of young guys on the roster that are being taught how to go about their business in the NFL within your building. And that's what builds your culture. And the contrast to that being Pittsburgh, who has a very sterling reputation, and Mike Tomlin. And yet this year you see and feel the cracks of a bunch of vets from a bunch of different spots that are all highly compensated, who kind of came together because they thought this was going to be a very competitive year, and they still may win the AFC North, right? They just got a massive head-to-head win against Baltimore. So when it's all said and done, maybe they'll get that post-home playoff game opportunity and have their chance to break a playoff drought that's pretty significant of their own. But it's just funny to me to look at Pittsburgh with Tomlin and all the buzz about Tomlin being out and the need for change and veteran players and how they're handling the adversity of this season. And it's all the things that, like, you looked at the 24 Dolphins and you were like, hey, this is not very sustainable, right? And it's Pittsburgh now who finds themselves in a lot of ways in those shoes. So I think that makes for a very compelling matchup of the teams, of two teams in their life cycles from a roster perspective, who are very different because Pittsburgh's got Rodgers at 42 or whatever he is, and all the veteran players, the TJ Watts and the Cam Haywards of the world. And they bring in Jonnu and they bring in Jalen Ramsey and they bring in DK Metcalf, right? Like, they went for it this year. And Miami kind of offloaded players and went younger and said, this is not sustainable, what we've been trying to do. And the contrast of those two things coming together at a head for a chance to Miami to have that breakthrough on a national stage, it's just all very ironic to me in a way.
Z, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Pittsburgh tried to build it through free agency and with older guys. He thought, it can make the last run guys, with these veterans. Wasn't Slay there too? And he just got cut.
Yeah.
He was there for big money, and he got cut. And it just didn't work. I think it's a time for a change there in Pittsburgh. I really do. I mean, no disrespect to Mike. I think he's a hell of a football coach, but he hasn't really done anything after Ben left, in the playoffs, really. He's always had a winning record, but it just gets enough to win, and he hasn't made the big push deep into the playoffs ever since really all Cowher's guys are gone. You know what I'm saying? It's not like they had, brought in guys that they've developed and into some rocket, superstars. It seems like they've just been getting along and just patching holes and moving along, and they were successful when Dick LeBeau was there, run that defense, because that goes back to the old days of the Cowher days when Dick was there and when I was there with Dick. Dick's been there off and on there for a long time. And I think there was stability there. Guys knew, what they were supposed to do, with, how to be accountable. And, I think it's just different now. I mean, I heard James Harrison go off about him last week, and he's a huge Dick LeBeau guy, but he also is a true Steeler, of the old school, the tradition and everything. I think there's just too many guys that are not used to the tradition of the old Steelers there right now that can, could get back to, the foundation of what a Steeler truly is right now, because they haven't lived it and they haven't lived it long enough.
Oh, and they're not running the ball, Kyle. When's the last time we could say the Steelers aren't running the ball? I mean, that's a team that has notoriously through the years made its bones running the ball and playing defense. And I've argued over the years with Cowher, with Tomlin, you keep these coaches forever. They're mediocre forever. They never really win big, so it just is kind of like they're that organization that you look to and you can say they're successful because they're always near the playoffs every year, but they never really win anything. And then when they have a year like this year, people are calling for Tomlin's head, but he'll win 3 games late, and he's done that several times. But this does not have the identity that I'm used to seeing this team. This Steelers team does not have the identity, Kyle, that I'm used to seeing from Steelers teams. Not at all.
That's because all the primary pieces are not players that are pieces from traditional Steelers teams. You still have Cam Hayward and TJ Watt, but we went through the quarterback and we went through the cornerback and we went through they must have signed 5 DBs in free agency this season, in season, guys like Asante Samuel Jr. and Kyle Duggar and Jabril Pepper. Like, they added all those guys in season, right? And then you consider DK Metcalf and Johnny Smith. It's a group that has been put together in a way in which Dolphins fans should recognize and see in the mirror, because that's what the Dolphins did at the end of the Chris Grier era in 2024. It was that team. It was all a bunch of one-year vets that were in their mid to late 30s that were looking for that spot to play where they'd have the intersection of a chance to play and a chance to compete and try to go all in. And that's why it doesn't feel like that. And I kind of agree that the writing on the wall is that, Pittsburgh changed a lot of their norms for how they went about their business to try to build a roster, because they felt like they were pressed up against a glass ceiling. And if this doesn't work with all the commitments that come with that, then I think you are probably at a point where they need to consider change. But right now they're looking at a 4-game season with home against Miami, at Detroit, at Cleveland, home against Baltimore to finish the season. And they need to go 2-2 to continue that Mike Tomlin non-losing season streak that they have. and they probably need to get 3 out of 4 to ensure they feel comfortable about their situation in the AFC North. So, it's all on the table for them, but that's when you reflect on the ups and downs and ebbs and flows of what this season has been for them. It's been very feast or famine at times, and I feel like that's why you don't recognize it as a traditional Steelers team. I did want to, real quick, before I give it back to you, Grease, I did want to acknowledge Mike McDaniel on the presser a little earlier in the show as he was doing his live presser. No broken ribs detected for Devon Achane. He was eligible to go back into the game. They chose not to. They said in an emergency they could have put him in, but we did not feel compelled to put Achane back in the game.
No, nor did they need to, the way that they were playing up front. But Z, I don't know if you saw the play. Kyle, I'll leave it for either one of you guys. The Isaiah Likely touchdown that they took off the board today for the Ravens, they pretty much handed the Steelers that game. I mean, we were getting ready to do the show as it was happening, but Lamar throws a touchdown pass. The guy, he Likely catches the ball. He's got it out in front of him. One step, 2 steps, 3 steps. They ruled that he didn't finish with control of the ball. The guy took 19 steps with the ball in his hands, and they overturn it. And it ends. I mean, by rule, it's the right call. The rule's terrible, but that was a big break for the Steelers. I'd show it up here on my screen, but I don't know if we have the rights to. I don't get in trouble. But I think we actually got an email about that recently. Don't show highlights off your phone. But it is, if you get a chance to go take a look at that, Isaiah Likely with a touchdown taken off the board, and then the Steelers win that game by less than a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unfortunate. I didn't see the play.
Yeah, it was because the ball was he caught it with his hands extended away, and the DB's trying to play through his hands, and he took 3 steps because he doesn't tuck it. It's ruled an incomplete catch. I think there's a whole bunch of officiating things that can be looked at and reassessed, but that unfortunately is the nature of the beast, right? And Miami didn't. I'm glad Miami did not leave a game like this one to choice, like at the end of last week's game where they ruled that somebody touched the onside kick and nobody could find anywhere on the film where somebody touched the onside kick, right? But like if they rule that that's the case, you got to play the hand you're dealt. And playing a close game, that's to Z's point earlier in the show about playing a complete complimentary 60-minute game. Don't leave yourself in a position to a subjective choice determining the outcome of your game effort the way in which that call did and potentially could have for Miami last week against the Saints.
Yeah, and I misspoke earlier in the show, Z. I said that the Bengals losing that game at Buffalo was a good thing for Miami. It wasn't a good thing for Miami because the Bills are ahead of the Dolphins in the wild card too, and that's something that the Dolphins having the Bengals coming up now at a 4-9 record can take things into their own hands. But how different they are with Joe Burrow, and watching Joe Burrow and Josh Allen go back and forth today. This is going to be some fun football, guys. I mean, the Dolphins at Pittsburgh, right? But you look at the AFC playoff race, how jumbled up it is, right above Miami, and the Dolphins at 6-7 now. You got the Ravens at 6-7. You got the Chiefs at 6-6. You got the Texans at 7-5. You got the Colts at 8-5 now with Danny Jones hurt, and you got the Chargers at 8-4 and the Bills at 9-4. So it's interesting when you think about that jumble and so many of those teams playing each other in these last couple of weeks.
Well, yeah, it's gonna be a fun month. This month of December, that's for sure, and just run down to the playoffs. because anything could happen. Really, Miami stays on a roll. You never know. And that's what we just got to take it 1 week at a time. And we got a big game for in Pittsburgh. Because they're gonna be coming. They're gonna be hungry. The fans are gonna be into it. Being a Monday night game, the terrible towels will be waving. And we just got to weather the storm early. Hope we come out fast start, and then we just keep steamrolling them, throughout the game.
Hope you can get Aaron Rodgers a couple times like you've been getting these QBs lately. He has a propensity to throw those INTs, especially later in his career. I'll go first with the final thought, and then you guys take us home. But, 4 in a row, 5 out of 6. They just keep playing better up front. They keep finding new ways to make plays and win games, and I'm just going to say it right now, and we'll be back on Wednesday. But I right now would pick the Dolphins to win this game at Pittsburgh and go to 500.
Oh, I'm the same way. I think we're going to go up there and play a good game. It's going to be a low-scoring game, but I think it's going to be, one in the trenches, both offense and defensively. I think our offensive line is better than theirs, and I think that we're able to control the outside rushers, and we'll be all right. And I'm looking for another win.
Kyle?
I will go with 3 unsung hero game balls for this game, for good performances in this game, but guys that have not been hallmark names for your team this season. Jalen Wright being one. I think that development for what he can do running the ball, 24 carries, 107 yards, and a touchdown. But he only had a long of 12 yards, right? It was a lot of chunks. It was hitting a lot of doubles instead of like a bunch of home runs and then 3-yard runs. So that performance, I think, deserves a major game ball as kind of an emergence of another layer to your running game. Riley Patterson kicking a 53-yarder, especially in the cold. I think that's a big deal. You know, I think he had 21 of 23 coming into this game, but the range was the question with Riley Patterson. So for him to hit a long kick like that, I think that can be a really nice confidence booster for him. And then I'll go Ethan Bonner on defense, right? Like I've dogged Ethan Bonner a little bit this year, and a little bit's probably doing a lot of heavy lifting here. It's a player who's been on the roster for a while, has been a developmental player, has been playing special teams, but he gets out there late in the game, and the Jets get a couple completions on him. But lo and behold, we get down in the red zone, and Bonner goes up and takes the football away at the catch point. It's a really cool moment for him. And you acknowledge, and you always want to see the guys be successful. And a guy who can go out and make a play like that looks like that in that moment to close out a game and help the defense keep a touchdown off the field is probably a really cool moment for him. And I want to tip the cap to Ethan Bonner for the play he made at the end of the game.
Yeah, nice job by the defense, flying all over the field. 34-10, the final 4 in a row, 5 out of 6 for the Dolphins. That's Zgonina in the middle, column Z. Kyle Krabs over there, Locked On Dolphins. Got a big week of shows coming up for Kyle. I know you got a club dub coming, Kyle. What else do you have?
Club dub, we'll do some game tape stuff. We have a little extra wiggle room because of the Monday game, so I'm sure we'll do some topical stuff as far as we did a Devon Achane contract extension deep dive on Friday this week. I'm going to probably pick a different player that's going into a contract year and just kind of get out in front of some of these decisions that a new executive is going to have to make at some point this offseason because we are juggling kind of race to climb back out of in the hunt and into actual contention for postseason talk and some changes to the football operation. So I want to get everybody primed on all fronts for all things that are happening. And because we have the extra show on Monday of next week before we play on Monday night, I will be taking advantage of that and probably doing a big picture show at some point this week as well.
A lot of big things coming your way. Locked On Dolphins podcast, number 10 channel on the network that is number 1 in the sports podcasting world. Z and Kyle and Grease, thanks so much for being here. Dolphins Squad Show 34-10, the final, another big win for Miami. We'll see you Wednesday at noon Eastern for another episode of your Dolphins Squad Show. Until then, keep your game tight and your mind right and enjoy that 4th in a row, baby. Miami, a football hotbed. The Canes make the playoffs. The Dolphins trying to push in right behind them.